To you, Roman. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Sabi, and welcome everyone again. Thanks for joining us for the third day of the season. And I'd just like to maybe recap quickly what we have been doing since yesterday. So primarily, right, our goal was, if I just go back to the key questions that you had to ask in terms of like your application, your API, how do I get a quick view? How do I know it's working well? Dashboards, charts, etc. Right? So what we did, and if I go or switch to the code lab, which is out here, is we deployed a sample application. What was the sample application? Nothing major. It was a simple inventory API application, which did something of this sort, which you see. You just put a slash inventory and it gives you back 3 items, or it maybe if you got the right product ID, it gives you by the quantity. But if you maybe put in the wrong quantity or something, it just says it's -1. So for this API, which is already, so for this inventory API, right, the first step of the application was to deploy. And we've deployed this on, so we tried a local run also, but primarily we've put this on Cloud Run. So you should be having a Cloud Run endpoint with your inventory already in place. After that, right, we looked at two things yesterday. First up was just to see how do we get some quick dashboards up and running. So that's step number 4, which was setting up a dashboard. So in this primarily, right, our goal was to see, for example, what were the sample libraries or sample dashboards already provided in Google Cloud. So since we deployed our application in Cloud Run, we went to the Cloud Run sample dashboard that was there and picked it up and just went with the default. So if you look at my project out here in Google Cloud Console, let me just close this Cloud Shell so we get some more state. So in Cloud Run, in Google Cloud Console, I've got my project ID that's selected. You could be having yours. I've gone to the monitoring main menu. And if you completed step 4, you should be at least having one sample dashboard. This is the one that we created yesterday, August 17th. And when you look at it, you should be able to see not exactly the same kind of data, but depending upon how many requests, how many services, etc. you have, you should be able to see quite a few key things. I mean, like latency, for example. So how fast your service is running, the kind of load it has, and so on. So that was step number 4, which is setting up some sample dashboards. Then we discussed something called uptime checks. And uptime checks was more around like, hey, you already got an API, right? So let's say I have an API that's working over here. And I told you in the code, there was one, endpoint called /healthy. So think of it like a health check or a health checkpoint or endpoint that is typically there in these APIs. So when you just go and hit that, it gave back a string that's shown here. So our goal was that does Google Cloud provide something that can repeatedly at some regular intervals ping this particular URL and check if the response is all is well. If that is what comes back, we can be assured that it's working fine. So what we did is we went to what's called uptime checks. That's step number 5 in your lab. And we created an uptime check. And as you can see yesterday, right, it was like when you created it first time, you would have seen that it's like a black dot because it's not yet started. But now you would have seen that over the, I would say, if you kept it running for a day, for example, ideally you should be seeing all green checks from different regions. And that's really the purpose of this uptime check, to just make sure it hits somewhere, everything is fine, you're good. But if something is wrong, then like you would have also seen that one of the things we configured in the uptime check, if you go to that particular code lab, was a notification channel, which, depending upon which channel you would like to get notified on, whether it's email, we support quite a few, as you can see. So whichever one you configured, if something is wrong, you would obviously see that. I would encourage you at times that if you're comfortable with code, right, maybe one of the things you should do is instead of all is well, go in the code, maybe change it a bit, and then redeploy your cloud service. And then what will happen is the uptime check will fail because it's checking for the string, but you kind of change it. So if it fails, you will see that it's become red, and ideally, you should get a notification on the channel which you configured. Just try it out. Has anyone tried it out? Has anyone tried to break the system since yesterday and try to simulate anything? Any hands up for that? Okay, fair enough. Probably just type in your chat, right? What did you kind of uh, fail so that you can see that, hey, uptime check is working or not, or something. Just type in chat so that others can also learn what kind of things you have done to simulate errors, because that's useful as you even move forward along. Feel free to type it in the chat if you'd like to share with others what you've done. So, having said that, we've got 2 to 3 things we need to complete today, and let's get going with that. So, first up, right, is what you see here called Metrics Explorer, step number 6. And really speaking, right, before you kind of jump into this, just try to understand what we are doing. So, if you notice in dashboards, and we already have a sample dashboard that's created, where do you think these values came from? So, for example, request count, or request latency, or maybe even CPU allocation, etc. These values have come from predefined metrics. These metrics, as I told you yesterday, does anyone remember how many metrics I said are possibly there in Google Cloud across all services? Just a rough number. I'm not asking for an exact number. If you are paying attention, you would have heard me say that 150 plus 179 dashboards. Good answer, but it's sample dashboard. I'm talking about metrics, actual values. Imagine this is just Cloud Run. You've got 100 or 150 plus services, each one having probably tens of metrics. So somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 are the metrics. And by the way, no one remembers them. You can always look at the documentation and see what metric you're interested in. But there's a reason I took this route to explain it to you, because what are the metrics, right? I'm talking about thousands out here. And how do I really even go about and find these metrics in the first place? For example, if I've got a VM, like what kind of metrics might be existing? If I've got a Cloud Run service, what kind of metrics are already existing? Because I don't want to reinvent the wheel trying to compute something from logs. That's pretty crazy out here. There should be predefined metrics, and which kind of doesn't make you go down the route of creating your custom metrics, right? So if you look at step number 6, that's what the word stands for, right? Explorer of metrics. So it's just think of it like you just try to find, or basically have a UI in front of you. It lets you explore, lets you search through, lets you kind of zoom in, learn more about a particular resource in Cloud Run, what could be the metrics for them. And of course, for each metrics, you can even see what the details are. So that's pretty much what this step tells you to look at. So go into Metrics Explorer from monitoring page, which it says. And then when you go there, right, obviously the first thing it will jump up and says, hey, you tell me which service, or I would say the right word to use here is resource. Everything in Google Cloud or anything in any cloud is a resource. Your virtual machine is a resource. Your storage is a resource. Cloud Run service is a kind of a resource. So it's asking you that if you know the metric name or somewhat approximately, if you know it, try to type. But if not, ideal way is go to the resource and then it should start showing you. So in this case, again, the keyword is active resources, which you see on this, right? Which is because I told you, if there are thousands of metrics, I don't want to show you all the metrics. And then when you try to query it, you find, hey, there's no data for it. Probably you're not even using that metrics or something. So that's why you see the word there, active resources. And the meaning of active resources is it already knows that, hey, you know what, you're using these things behind the scenes, then there is probably some data for it. So take a look at it that way, right? So basically, you can follow the instructions as I'm doing it, but pay attention maybe to what I'm doing also. So I go to Metrics Explorer, and as you know, this inventory service that we have, which is, let's say, this part, right, is hosted on Cloud Run. So when I go to Metrics Explorer, the first thing is telling me is, let's start with the metric, search for one. So just click this select a metric, and you might see already that there are some things which are active. And of course, in my project here, I've got many other things running. That's why I'm seeing a lot more active resources, but it may differ for you depending upon what sort of things you have instantiated, created in your Google Cloud project. So if I want, I could just type the word run, and you start seeing that, okay, maybe it's doing something, but maybe we'll zoom in into Cloud Run service. So for this resource, you can see it's kind of created different categories now. The steps in the lab also tell you the same thing. So you got different categories, and you see something which probably might, be of interest. So in our case, we want to just keep a track of things like, say, for example, latency. So if you click that, you see that it's talking about request latency is one metric that's there. And as you hover over it, it now starts telling you or giving you more details about the specific metrics. All of this stuff, by the way, you can get even if you do a search on Google Cloud documentation, sorry, went away, on what the metrics are for a service, and you can see the documentation either way. So here now, it gives you the details, what this metric is about, the kind of the type, or sorry, the value type, right? Sometimes it's just a counter, sometimes it's a distribution. Anyone is able to tell me, what is this distribution? I know it's not, you don't want to go too much into detail, but just for fun. What is the distribution? Statistics. Come on. You don't have to be perfect. No one is. Category, yeah, but category of what? So for example, if it's latency, right? The context is latency, distribution of latencies, which means it's probably going to do something like a bucketing, like 90 percentile of your requests have got done in so much time. 95% or 95 percentile has got done. 99 percentile, this is your latency. So this way you know that, hey, it's 95% of my requests. What does the latency look like? And that should be good enough. Remember, metrics, right, are not sometimes meant that every single thing has to be calculated. For example, you might just say that, hey, in a minute, if you take an average of it, that should be good enough for me, because I don't want to know every second what is the latency. Across a minute, tell me approximately what the latency is. That should be fine. It depends on the situation, but most of the time, this kind of normalization, or this kind of, I would say, averaging is more than sufficient. But anyway, I'm just digressing. So here, we're interested in request latency. Select revision, latency, request latency. At the moment you click apply, right, something happens. What happens is that it has now said, okay, this is what you want to zoom into and look at it. Let's see the distribution, 50 percentile, 95th, 99. This is the kind of a distribution metric. Now, this, obviously, when even I looked at it first time, I got a shock. I couldn't understand really what's going on. Though if I spent some time, I could have figured out this too. But then the lab also tells you that go into the widget type that you see here and maybe select a line chart and just continue. Now things start making a little bit more sense. And it looks like latency. These are the average latencies that we are seeing for the requests that are coming in. And I've just fired a few requests right now, so that's what you're seeing. In case you want to increase the time interval, come ahead, do something over here, filtering like we discussed yesterday. You could see it across last 30 minutes, what it's looking like. Maybe you can even, as the requests are coming in, maybe you want to show on your dashboard on a big TV screen or whatever it is. You could always, keep an auto refresh also, so that now as data comes in, you'll find slowly it will move and have the data. So keep it if you want. That's perfectly fine here. So what we've done so far is we've gone to the Metrics Explorer, we've selected a metric, we've just done a few things here. By the way, you can do all kinds of filtering also here, right? So for example, let me just take this a little bit up, and you see your filters. Suppose if you got several services that are coming in, right? So you can even say, like, or maybe response code. So oops, my UI is a bit bad. So you can actually even do filtering based on quite a bit of this location or the name of the service, etc. So up to you how you want to filter, but keep in mind this is like any other observability monitoring system, and it will have all of these things for you to modify. We don't have to necessarily go into all of this now. Now, as per the steps, now let's say this something interests you and say, I think I want this chart because latency is important. Just give me focused dashboard. The previous dashboard obviously gave you all those charts, which also you could modify. But in this case, I'll just say click on save chart. So I can now have a very specific chart. So in this case, I can say inventory API latency, let's say. And a dashboard, which one? I can select an existing one that I created yesterday, or let's create a new dashboard. So maybe we'll just say this is the inventory latency dashboard and save it. Now, once this is done, what you've actually done is, if I go back to dashboards, you will see there's another new or a new custom dashboard which you've created. And this one, if you click, you should see only that chart. So this way, if you want on a big screen, go ahead and just put this out there, and you should be good to go. But again, all of the other filterings are possible. Another important thing, right, is also notice this stuff called share on the top here. So even if folks don't have rights and you don't want them to do a lot of other things in Google Cloud, except maybe just go and look at what the numbers or metrics or whatever be the things that you want them to observe, just share this URL and invite those users. They'll be only able to get the dashboard viewer role, which is one of the IAM roles that is allowed to only view things that are out there, right? So if I look at the steps here, that's pretty much what step number 6 is doing, which is take a look at one of the metrics via the Explorer. In this case, we did Cloud Run latency. You can play around with the chart if you want, but then we simply going ahead and clicking the save button on it, giving a name to our chart, and then creating the dashboard, right? So how are we doing? Anyone added some other, go ahead, add some more charts if you want, create some more dashboards, customize the dashboards if you want. How are we doing? Everyone looking okay on this step? Shall we go to cloud logging? So show of hands. Maybe you want a minute. Yeah, Mihir, if you understood heat map, maybe that's a session worth having. You can take it for us. When I first saw a heat map, I couldn't understand how to even read it. So that's good. I went for the easier option. Show me some charts, which are just those lines. Okay, all right. So if you are good, we're going to go to the next thing, which is cloud logging. Now, we're just jumping out of something which is categorized like as cloud monitoring. We're actually going now to cloud logging, which is a different product, a different service, but it still comes under the cloud operations suite. And how many of you have used cloud logging or inadvertently stumbled upon it? Anyone? If things go wrong, a question, things go wrong, what is your first instinct? Anyone? When someone says, hey, it's not working, like check logs, right? That's pretty much what I was trying to get, and thanks for the answer. So really speaking, right, if you're a developer or any mindset, right, I mean, it's more like something going wrong. Maybe we need to figure out if somebody somewhere hopefully has logged something for us. So when you look at logs, right, there are various kinds of logs in Google Cloud. There will be things that Google Cloud themselves generates for its services. There are few things from an administrative purpose, whether access logs or audit logs, which you can't control, but we'll be like generating it anyways, though you have control over some which get generated, don't get generated, how long they can be stored and things like that. But then, of course, there's also your own application logs, right? So if you look at the, as anyone noticed in the code, right? So let me, for a moment, go quickly to, okay, just hold on. Let me, Cloud Code sample repository. This is the one which we are cloned and then deployed. So if you look at the code, don't worry about the code right now. My goal is just to show you that somebody is logging something. So at least this application, right? When someone makes a call to, for example, a specific product, or right? So whenever you're calling the inventory / the product, if something goes wrong, that means when you give a wrong, I would say, a product, it goes ahead and logs, hey, I've received a request for a wrong inventory item, right? So at least that kind of logging is going on in the system. So what I would suggest to you is, please, all of you, at least come to your URL for the Cloud Run application and go in and put some wrong URL. Just simulate some wrong data, right? Maybe 2000. So just make sure that you have this quantity -1. My goal is just to make extra logs come into your logging system so that we can observe them and do something with it. It just helps. Otherwise, you'll find, hey, you're firing the query and there's no data because, of course, you're not simulating enough wrong data, because the only thing the application is logging, as I showed you, is if there's an incorrect product ID, right? So go ahead, simulate a few, wrong requests. Not wrong request. Request is right. It's just that it doesn't find the product ID. So all of you at least have simulated a few. Yes, no, quickly. Yes, no, just put something. Only one of you? Go ahead, take your time, that's fine. Or eventually you need to at least see. So having said that, let's look at what the step is telling us to do in cloud logging. So, let me go to the top. So this is another product, as I told you. And as a result of that, it tells you that this product is available from Cloud Logging. And the key thing there is Logs Explorer. And when you go to Logs Explorer, you will see this nice UI, which lets you filter, slice, dice, do all kinds of things with logs. So just for a moment, we will quickly make sure everyone is able to reach there. So ensure that you're able to be in your Google Cloud Console, either from the main menu. You can find it from over here if you pinned it. If not, come to the search, type in logging, and you will see something called Logs Explorer. Just go there. So once you're in Logs Explorer, right, in your project, obviously it lets you see a lot of things. And for those of you who have been a little bit very peculiar at what's going on, you see here that I had configured an uptime check, right? And I'm hoping all of you also have configured an uptime check as part of your earlier step in the code lab. And you will see that there are some pings coming in from different IPs and things like that, because it's like hitting the /healthy endpoint, right? We had configured that every minute ensure that from different regions, the /healthy endpoint is hit as part of the uptime check. That's why if you see a lot of things happening in your system, like a /healthy, that's primarily because that uptime check logs are what you're seeing over here, and for which you see quite a few. Let me just maybe increase the font over here. You see /healthy, several of them. You might also see, if you have noticed carefully, see, right? You saw even a received inventory request for incorrect product ID. Now, sometimes, if you don't see logs, don't worry, right? Just do a few checks to make sure you're looking at the right resource first. So sometimes you have a Cloud Run, right? Revision, or basically which service you're looking at. And obviously, if you see here, I've got various services, but I'm just going to say, select the service that I'm interested in. And now I'll be able to see only logs that have got to do with this particular service. Also keep in mind, sometimes if you've generated logs a bit before and it's not yet appearing, ensure that you're selecting the right kind of time intervals. So sometimes you need to filter these things also. So far with me on this, and see, as you do all this, it tells you, it fills up this query for you, right? So that you can anytime run this if you want to, and you will see the updated logs. Sometimes if the logs are taking a little bit of time, there is a nice feature here called Jump to Now. So click that, and that will take you straight away into the last sort of messages that are coming. So for example, what I'll do is, let me go ahead and put this 999 something, and then maybe 888, and then I'll go and put a 777, maybe 3 wrong requests which are fired. Let me see, jump to now, has it got them or not, right? So you see it's like getting this 999, then 888, and then of course it will all come in, right? The 777 also. So this, I'm just showing you different ways by which you could do things. Now, you can also do a very quick save. When you do a save, this basically saves, so it says migrate query. I'm just putting a in here, and let's say save this query, and then you'll find that once it's saved, it's going to go into your saved I would say tab, and you can see your query anytime, run this query also anytime you want. So this is a gateway to just, if you created some nice set of queries, just save them so that you have it any point in time. So going back to the lab, pretty much that's what it is telling you. There are a few things going on in your logging explorer, and I just showed you a few other features of it. Now, it says we need to just specifically search. Now, let's say someone says that there's lots of maybe incorrect product IDs people are searching for, or you just want to see, is someone kind of attacking it and just seeing whether which product IDs are really there or not, right? So maybe someone tasks you now with this particular task to say that, find out how many entries are there for incorrect request IDs, because it looks like someone is playing a game from somewhere and just maybe in a sequence going after product IDs and seeing if they exist, doesn't exist, and then it may do something else with it, like just one kind of a threat attack that's happening. So you got this task now to say, can you search for warnings that only do that, right? So this is exactly what it tells you of how to do that. And while you can follow these, and you can only get the logs then for this particular statement that says, okay, for incorrect product ID, let me go and find it. So if I go back to my logs explorer, there are various ways. One of the things you can do is you've got this thing over here. When you actually say expand this and say, when you just click here, oops, what's happening here? 1 second, I am just going to slightly make this smaller because it is becoming a bit difficult for me. So if you see the lab instruction, what it tells you is there is something called the text node. And here it's saying if it is starting with this statement, because product IDs could be, quite a different one. So you just want to say all the product IDs, but if it just starts with this text, it should be good. So that's what the lab is telling you to do. You can type this out. There's also other ways by which you see this. When I clicked on that, it says show matching entries. And when I just do that, it actually fills up that text payload, but it has filled up only for that product. So I will just go and I'm just lazy, so that's why I'm doing it this way. And then I'm saying I'm going to make it starts with this. And now when I run it, I will be able to get the same thing that the code lab tells you. That, okay, these are the different product IDs which are incorrect. So now I know there are 6 requests that have come in so far. So this is, I'm just showing you variety of ways by which you can filter specific log messages and search for that. So someone says, if something is going wrong, I think these are the kind of messages my application is logging. And that's what I'm just trying to show you, a way by which you can search through the logs. By the way, some very powerful regular expressions are also supported over here. So that's this particular step where it tells you to put this text payload. You can type it also. Remember to save it if you would like to run it every now and then. Sometimes you may say, no, I think this is not correct. It seems that it's not just 6 records. I think there were maybe, 20 records. So take it easy, as I told you. Sometimes it just happens that maybe you've not run it for the, I would say, the time interval across which you want these things to happen. So it stays here clearly, showing logs for the last 30 minutes, right? So maybe you can just say, okay, let's see for the last 1 hour, if you got something. So as you see, more data is coming up. So just take it easy. If you don't see the data, obviously there is a little lag between when an event occurs in Google Cloud entire system, and then how it finds its ways into the logs and eventually gets connected into metrics and whatnot. There's a few seconds delay in any case, but the when I've used logs over the years, I have found that one of the things that typically I miss out when I'm trying to search is because I'm just not focusing enough that, hey, I might not be seeing the logs. So someone says last one day, right? So take it easy. It's just 15 minutes, 30 minutes here. So go ahead, edit the time and go and search. And you'll be able to get your logs for any kind of time zones, and whatever period. Fine. So far in the lab, right, we are here, which is that we found out now all these number of incorrect requests for the, sorry, correct requests, but for the incorrect product ID. Now, someone tells you that, hey, I'm not going to do this every day, right? Because every day I'm not going to come to this logs explorer. Every day I'm not going to search this or fire this query. Every day I'm not going to send you a report. While you can do all of that, there are APIs and whatnot you can automate also. There is the right way to do it, especially in the observability world. And the right way to do it is, hey, why don't I convert this into a metric itself, into my custom metric, basically, right? So I know that this text, if it is there, count it as 1. If you see 7 of them, count it as 7. So maybe I just want to provide a counter metric that says that just count, first of all, how many number of incorrect requests are being sent in a day or something like that. So that's precisely what we're trying to do. We are trying to actually create custom metric, and we are creating this right from the logs itself. It's an extremely powerful feature. If someone says, that every time we print the word error in the logs, it means something has gone wrong. Great. Go ahead and just put a pattern for that error, convert that pattern into a metric, and create charts and dashboards out of it. That's the whole purpose. So just follow with me as I'm doing it, and that's precisely what's there in the rest of the lab here. So first, create the counter metric, and that's very simple. You just stay here, right? This is what you want. And you see over here, there's this button called create metric. Just click on that. When you do that, it asks you, is it a counter metric or a distribution? Now, hopefully you're clear what a distribution is, and a counter is a simple count, right? So we'll stick to that for now because we just want to know how many log entries are matching or how many incorrect product IDs are being requested. So I'm just saying I want a counter metric, give a name for it. So I can say my, I don't know, let's say great, again, I'm using this incorrect product ID metric, suppose something like this, right? Let's skip description for now, units and all is fine. And you can see it's pre-populated that this is the filter you want to actually do that. By the way, you can make it extremely powerful by even going across projects, across buckets and things like that. And this becomes a very powerful feature. But we'll stick to our project logs for now. Go ahead and create this metric. Once the metric is created, which is what the step tells you that go ahead, create this metric, it's created successfully, as you see in the code lab also. Where do you see that? And that's what the code lab tells you. It's available in your log-based metrics, which is visible there itself. So from here, if you just go to the left, you will see that under loggings, we were in Logs Explorer, but you can go to something called log-based metrics, which is what we created. So when you look at log-based metrics, of course, I've got some other metrics out here, but you can see that my grade, incorrect, PID metric, sorry, let me increase this a bit. You can see that that metric is also created out here. And if I just click on more actions, which is what the lab tells you, you can see here, it tells you view in Metrics Explorer. And now hopefully you're clear what this view in Metrics Explorer means. In the previous step in the code lab, right? You had seen a Metrics Explorer, you could search for it. Now it's telling you, you created a custom metrics. Instead of searching from there, why don't you just simply jump perfectly into that, right? So that's what I'm going to click over here. And now you will find that it's pre-populated. It didn't tell me search for it. It actually got, this user metric, as you can see. So it prefixes it with logging/user and migrate, whatever it is. Now, you might get confused. Hey, no data. Can you tell me why there's no data? Anyone? Any thoughts? You already saw 7 to 8 rows, but you didn't, it's not showing me any data. Any guesses why? Anyone? Time? No, it's nothing to do with time. no triggers yet, kind of right. Remember, one of the rules is you created the custom metric now, which means that Google Cloud knows about this custom metric only right now. So prior to that, if there was data that was already generated, it did not add as another +1 to this counter because it didn't know of this metric that time. So starting from now, if you go ahead and fire several queries, eventually it will start appearing. So what I'll do as a way is, let's go and remove this. Sorry, where are we? We are here on, let's say, let's save this chart. So again, it's empty right now, don't worry. So I'll just save this chart because anything is wrong with it. So I'll go ahead and say incorrect product ID request count is my chart. Let's create a new dashboard. Let's say inventory count, inventory, maybe request errors dashboard. And I'll save this. Once I've saved it, everything is again the same. So we go back to our dashboard, you will see one more custom dashboard that's come in. And if you see that, you will see that it's not having any data, which is perfectly fine. If we would like, see, it's not supported for absolute time ranges, that's fine. What we're going to do right now is maybe we'll just say last 1 hour, is it going to get it? It won't pick up this way. So we'll keep the last, let's say 15 minutes. We'll keep the auto refresh on. And what we're going to be doing is, as you should now know, let's fire some more incorrect requests, right? So that eventually it gets converted into a count and you will start seeing. So sorry, I'm just going to go ahead and fire a few other, whatever, incorrect product IDs that are there. So we can give it some time and it will start appearing. Don't expect that the moment you do this, it's going to start appearing on this. You will find that eventually it will start appearing. We can come to it in a while. So this is how you can convert log statements into your patterns. And if you're happy with the search results and you want to convert this straight away into maybe a metric, I showed you how to do that from the logs explorer itself. Convert the metric maybe even into a chart and a dashboard and just share the chart, your problem is solved. This is how you automate stuff. This is how you really give people the data they want to see. See, this is automatically refreshed. And now, as you can see, 3 requests, which I fired right now, incorrect ones, I have started to get shown onto the dashboard. Clear? This is how you do things. Remember, the more you sort of increase your timeline, it's going to start looking a little different and etc. So you can just keep it like 15 minutes and you can start seeing. And this is the power of the auto refresh thing if you want to. So I'll just now, and again, you can share it if you want to. So that's step 7, which was cloud logging, which is we created an our custom metric from the log, and we converted or added basically that to a chart and a dashboard, and then we saw that stuff. So how many of you have been able to complete this? Have been able to simulate some wrong product IDs? Are beginning to see it? So hopefully this gives you a very powerful way that in future, right, if you know what your application is logging, look at those log patterns, save those queries. It will save you a lot of time moving forward to see when problems occur. And then you can also create them into metrics charts if you want to. One feature which is not there in the lab, but I want to show you, just like how you had sample dashboards, right, which say, look, we're giving you 150 plus dashboards, go ahead and use it. Similarly, if I go to my logging again, I will just show you that in the logs, there is a library also for logs, okay? So we have created, as you can see, tons of well-known logs. So for example, someone says like, hey, can you tell me what are the VPC flow logs in Google Cloud? This is not an easy query, mind you. So if you do like a run, I mean, there is some logic to it and it populates that for you. Similarly, if you look at libraries like Cloud Run, where were we? Sorry, does it have anything on Cloud Run? Let's go down. GK, see the number of queries that we have of all kinds, right? So all I'm saying is it's likely that you may find, for example, some library of queries that are already pre-written by us. and then simply you go there and do that. And you will find that you can sometimes just view a query also to see how it is written, so that you understand how the thing is done. So make use of all of this. Okay, that brings me to the final step, which is alert policies. And in alert policies, right? Again, this should now start triggering what we are talking about. So what we are saying now is that, hey, so far we've created some metrics, right? Or we've looked at some metrics like latency, for example. We created maybe dashboards out of it and other things, or even the request count errors. We created dashboards. But remember, the job of the operator is not to just keep staring at the dashboard whole day long. Those are good for demos, but and maybe just seeing once in a while if things are working fine or not. But obviously, if something goes wrong, you can't expect that they were just waiting there, looking at the screen, and then something triggered out there. So the point is, you want to say that it has to be more like a way by which, if there are any violations, if there are any values going a bit wacky, or above a particular threshold or below a particular threshold, then you would like an alert to be fired. So basically what you're saying is, please monitor the metric for me. For example, latency, and please, or maybe the request count. And if it goes really above a certain number, probably some people are trying to play games. So for example, if I make all 50 of you hit my inventory endpoint with wrong product IDs, the request count for wrong product IDs may suddenly start going up. And maybe that's when I want to be alerted that, look, maybe something is really going wrong, maybe something is happening, please alert me. So that's pretty much what the step number 8 is. It's a very simple step, which is, whichever be the charts you have, go and look at those metrics and convert them into alert policy. So that's precisely what this is, and follow on. So here it gives you an example of that same dashboard which we created for the request count, right? So if we go back to our monitoring page and we go to, where were we, in dashboards, for example, and where were we, request errors dashboards, for example, and you see over here, right? So you probably, I've shown different ways, but you see this convert to an alert chart that's out there, right? So either way, you can either edit it, you might see it this way. Sometimes our UI keeps changing over here. So what I'm doing is I'm converting it to an alert chart. So when I click that, it says create the alert policy. So basically, there are multiple steps. So first one is just, do you want rate, or do you want some number of errors, or whatever it is. So we can just say next over there. Oops, what's happening to my UI here today? It's not refreshing well. So the next one is really, you want to track like the errors, right? So is it like above a certain value, below a certain value, and things like that, right? So it can even be at times a complete absence. Absence, if it doesn't get reported, means something also has gone completely wrong. But threshold is like, is it above or is it below a particular threshold? So you can say if it is above, let's say, let's say 10 per second or something like that, right? So you can see the value there. Of course, 10 is like, it doesn't show the thing properly on the graph. So maybe say 2 per second, right? So as you can see here, the value you selected 2 per second, and the thing that it is observing is quite less. But okay, you're putting it, or you can just say if it goes like 0.5 per second, right? Then maybe I would like to be notified that probably too many records. Again, this is because you've done a rate, but you could have done some count and all that stuff. So I can just go ahead with the next step and say that, where should I get notified? Again, I can select the maybe email where it should notify me, etc. Any documentation that what should be done if something like this happens. I can name the alert policy, and then finally I can create the policy. Now, when I do that, the policy has got created, alert policy, and currently it says there are no open incidents. But where do we see all of this? In alerting, if you go, you will see now there are 2 alert policies. Actually 2, because when you see view, our first one was of yesterday, if you remember, our uptime check failure policy. The other one is this new one, which is what we created right now, which is in case the count incorrect product ID is being requested, it goes above a certain threshold. So you can actually see also if anything is funny is happening or not, and you can see it's coming from this particular metric. So again, this is how you can set your things in case you want to say that if it goes above. For example, you can even try for latency, and if the latency. So how you would do that at times is like, I'll just show you very quickly. If you can even try out other ones. You can just say, okay, I'm looking for Cloud Run, and I'm looking for request latency, and maybe I'll do an apply. I'll just come to a line chart, and I'll say save chart, and then I'm just saying my test latency chart, dashboard. Just bear with me, I'm just doing it fast. So I'll just say V4 or something, V3, save it. I'm on dashboards, I'm seeing this dashboard, and I'm seeing that one particular chart. I can convert this. So this is my current latency numbers, right? I can convert this to a alert chart and say, go ahead, I would like to create a policy threshold. The current performance is shown here, right? And I'll say anything that goes over, say, 20 milliseconds above, right? I think that's too slow, and I should get notified. So you can see it's created it accordingly. So I can again say next. Where should I get notified? Maybe on email. Everything looking good. Next, create policy, right? So this is my another alert policy which I've created. If I see on my alerting page, I'll see now 3 policies in place, and it's all being set. So now what I've done is I don't have to keep looking at some dashboards. Basically, if my requests start getting a bit slow, I put 20 millisecond is my threshold. If it starts getting above that, then maybe I'll need to get notified. So that's what I've said one of the alert policies for. The other one is, of course, uptime check is of yesterday, and product request count is the one. Another one that in case someone is really playing around and trying some wrong product IDs, goes above a certain rate, maybe I'd like to get notified about it. Remember, at times when an outage happens and something goes wrong, for example, if your latency has become really slow, due to which the alert gets fired, right? So basically what happens is now you're working on the problem. It might take you 30 minutes, 1 hour, half a day, 2 hours, I don't know, some time to actually mitigate and come out of the outage. During that time, if this alert policy remains on, you will just keep getting alerts, and basically your operators will go half mad. So what you want to do is you acknowledge it and say, I'll just disable it for a moment, because I know the problem is on, I'm working on it, I'm solving it, just turn it off. And this way, this is also a good way sometimes to test it and just come out of it, or during an outage, you can disable the policy where you work calmly on solving it. When everything is fine, go ahead, enable it back. And now you're in business again. Cool. So that's what step 8 was, which is to, it just shows another way. I showed you in a different way. Try it out. And sets the alert metric. And then it's just those 4 steps which I had done to create the alert. And finally, you will see that an additional policy has got added. And that's how you've done it. 9 is optional. You don't have to worry. So basically, the last step, how many of you have finished this? They're looking good. Any questions, etc.? We'll come. Okay, let's wait on the questions. Let's first just summarize what we've done. Okay. All right. So just keep working on it. I mean, you'll get there, and maybe try out a new things. So in summary, right, what we've looked at is for a sample application, in our case, the inventory API service. We've done quite a few things. Of course, we deployed it to Cloud Run, and then Cloud Run application is what we did several things from monitoring, logging on. We set up some dashboards from sample dashboards. We set up an uptime check. We even looked at certain logs, found out some error logs, created a pattern out of it, converted that into a custom log metrics, set up some alert policy. For those of you who are interested in SRE, site reliability engineering, and some key terms like SLI, SLO, this is optional. Take a look at it if you'd like. So I think one of the things, and maybe Abhi, you could also come in here, is in terms of completion. Of course, the code lab completion is one aspect of it, but maybe for the I would say, the application which was installed on the first day, the bookshelf one, if they could show a few charts or dashboards which have been configured for that application, that would be also nice to just validate that things got done. Entirely up to us. We can take both these applications, but nicer would be use your knowledge which you learned from this code lab or the inventory API and apply it to the bookshelf API.
Romin, thanks a lot for that. And I think that's exactly what Rajiv has already done with his app, another, I think, bookshelf app. And he's just added the healthy endpoint to his day one session. So which is great. And it's really, Romin, this was fantastic. I've got to say, this is one of our one of those Code Vipassana sessions for which we've got amazing questions on LinkedIn as well. Like they keep reaching out and asking, can we do more of these sessions? So what I'm going to do is I have a good recording of your yesterday's session and today's as well. It's already uploaded in the portal, Code Vipassana Season 3 portal, and today's also will be uploaded. But besides that, I'm going to edit it in such a way that it's seamless. It's in one video, the whole thing. And we'll upload it in our YouTube as well. And I'll send it to all of you if you want to reference or if you want to take it and run in your own groups or communities. And we'll have repeat sessions being scheduled in Code Vipassana meetup group. Because there's a lot of folks apparently interested in DevOps with Google Cloud. So this will be a great, this is very precise way of going through all the things that we can talk about when it comes to operations with Google Cloud. So thank you for that, Romin. I just need a few minutes to talk about the silence.
There are a few questions if you want, if I can take them quickly, if there's time.
Yeah. Please go ahead. Romin, do you, okay, yeah, I'll stop.
Please go ahead first with your, just logically where you want to go with.
No, I'll just stop the recording here. I'll stop the recording here. You answer the questions and then I'll talk about the silent finale and the closure for Season 3's exercises. Yeah, you carry on.
Okay.
Let me just close the recording first.
Okay.